Hey, Ruth Ann, talk CDL.
Hey, Troy. Yeah.
All right. Hey, you know what? It's New Year's Eve. We're actually recording on, what is today, 31st of January?
No, it's December.
Or December, rather. But anyways, and then tomorrow's the 1st. Tonight will be...
That's how it goes.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I just realized that. I didn't even realize I was out hunting all morning, didn't get a deer, and now here we are in the studio doing a podcast, and then I'm going back out hunting. And then tonight we'll actually be live, but they won't know that because this will be out after we're live, so it's kind of redundant. Anyways, I wanted to mention something before we get started. We have that new Facebook group called Talk CDL Trucking Podcast Group. Unbelievably, we're up to like 3,400 people already. So I didn't...
They like you.
No.
They really do.
No, I didn't mean it that way. Most people don't like me, but
I know, right?
But I mean, sincerely, this group is growing. And what's really cool about the group, you know, when you make a page or a group on Facebook, you never know how it's going to go, right?
Right.
Well, we got this one guy, and other people are doing it too now. They're posting like emergencies, like.
Well, that's what it was for. It was for us.
No, it wasn't just for that.
No, I'm saying it was for the drivers to be able to communicate up-to-date information like that too.
Right. Well, they're doing great at it. Was this one guy, Peter?
And he's doing awesome.
Yeah. I mean, he's posting like road closures, where accidents happen and interstate shutdown, all kind of emergencies, and everybody's liking it. Everybody's like, awesome. This is great because you know what? When you're a member to that, you're getting information right away as it's coming in. Mm-hmm. And these guys are going down the road, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're getting a notice, and then they may get warned, hey, we better make a different route here. I think it's awesome. Yeah,
you know, it's definitely doing well. Eugenia posts a lot of stuff too, as far as different stuff that's in her area that she spots too. So I mean, we all try and contribute. You know, I don't contribute that much of important information at all, but you know, we do stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying. So if anybody's, you know, wishing to join it, you can join.
Join it.
In fact, we have it on automatic approval. So go ahead and find Talk CDL Trucking Podcast Group on Facebook and post, please. Bring your posts. If you got a video or something on the road, or you got some kind of a situation that's going to affect truck drivers, put that post on there and warn our brothers and sisters.
Yeah. Just keep it clean.
All right.
Don't be trash talking in there.
So today, Ruth Ann, on Talk CDL, we've got I came across this article. It was actually going to be about something else. And in reading this article, I found another article, and I thought, this is really interesting stuff. And it's titled, Some Safety Violations Can Turn into Misdemeanor or Felony Convictions. And this lawyer wrote this article up, and I'll give his name out here in a second. But he wrote this article up how a lot of drivers think certain things that they're doing are just, what's the big deal? I'll falsify or do this or doing that. Even on employment applications, everything can turn into a felony. And believe it or not, it's not as uncommon to be convicted of a violation like this in trucking than you think. I mean, it's not common, but it's not as uncommon as you would think.
I got what you're saying. Instead of being like practically no convictions at all, there's more convictions than you actually think for something that you would think is a minor thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like there's certain things you do every day in your life, right? Where, like, and I'm just trying to think of an example in everyday life where you
getting up sometimes can be a felony.
Yeah, you getting up is a felony. But but no, seriously, think about it. There's certain things that people do, right, where they don't think, I'm going to get caught. Like maybe they lie on their taxes or just something that's very common. You know, I'll give you another example. Somebody might go in the grocery store and pick up a thing of grapes and sample one. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's common.
I know it's very common, but, you know, okay, here's the grapes, you know, and if I'm being honest, I think you should be able to pluck a grape off and taste it. Why? Because half the times you buy a bunch of grapes, sometimes you get them home, you're going, these things suck. They're not sweet. They're kind of flat. But anyways, that is stealing. And a lot of people take it for granted that, hey, I'm going to go ahead and sample a grape, you know what I mean, without being told I can, or a piece of fruit or whatever that's opened in the store. Can't do that. So this stuff here in trucking, a lot of drivers, and the lawyer even said, well, I get truckers nonchalantly just saying, well, why is that such a big deal if I do this? And I don't want to name them just yet.
You're building it up, but don't give it away just yet.
Yeah. And so bottom line is, you know, it's a lot of common things that probably a lot of people do, and they don't realize that someday the crap can hit the fan. Plus, other things we've got today. Couple articles I want to talk about. The trucker that was sentenced to 110 years, it was reduced. We're going to go over that in a second. A truck driver in North Dakota wrecked in a ditch, and you know how cold it is in North Dakota. He stayed there for 2 days with his truck, waiting for a tow truck. It almost sounds, what's the word I'm looking for? Deceiving, the title of that, because you wait till you hear the actual article. And another article I came across, really sad story. A trucker was on the side of the road, didn't have his lights on, or his trailer lights weren't working, pulled out. A father and his 2 kids rear-ended him. Dad died. The 12-year-old also died. And we'll get into that. And I think we got something else here. Believe it or not, a trucker recently was carjacked. Okay. I should say semi-jacked.
I was going to say carjacked. If he was a trucker, was he with his truck? Or?
He was semi-jacked by a criminal that had murdered a cop and forced him to go while he robbed a place. And we'll get into that and maybe a few more things. Plus, you got the joke of the day and the word of the day from Word Genius.
I also got a pretty interesting fact.
So you got, Ruth Ann's got some fun facts today. Are they trucker facts, or are you just kind of bringing in a little sunshine?
No, this is just bringing in some sunshine.
Some sunshine into trucking. Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. Well, how about we mention our sponsor? You wanted to mention...
I want to mention J.J. Keller right now.
J.J. Keller is call him the trucker secretary?
Yes, they are the trucker secretary. And on the note that you were talking about with the lawyer, I thought, well, this is really good because, you know, J.J. Keller can help keep you on track also when it comes to your filings and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you're an owner-operator, you're wanting to become an owner-operator, or even if you're a small fleet owner, call J.J. Keller at 888-601-2017. These people are literally like having a secretary in your back pocket. They'll keep you organized. They'll have all the paperwork you filed. And at the end of the year, guess what? You're not biting your nails going, oh, we didn't get that stuff done. And they are the cheapest secretary you'll ever hire.
That's for sure.
All right.
You know, unless you have me and are free like Troy. So anyways.
Anyway, moving on. So why don't we go ahead and let's talk about this article that we came across about with this lawyer.
Alrighty.
And again, the title is Some Safety Violations Can Turn into Misdemeanor or Felony Convictions. And I thought it was a great article. Here it is. I'll read it to you, and then we'll kind of go back over it, all right?
All right.
The lawyer's name, Ruth Ann, is Paul Taylor.
That's a pretty easy name to remember.
Pretty easy, Mr. Taylor. And he's actually a big trucker advocate. And he actually will leave his phone number. I'm going to leave that phone number in here. It says some safety violations can turn into misdemeanor or felony convictions. Now, listen to this. He writes, many drivers assume that the only risk they have in violating a federal motor carrier safety regulation is being placed out of service by an enforcement officer and getting a mark on their CSA score. And he says, actually, there are numerous criminal penalties you can incur for violating those regs. Now, listen to this. What he just said was, and I agree with him, most truck drivers believe that most of the stuff that we do in trucking that are wrong, what's the worst going to happen?
Oh, I'm going to get stuck in and out of service for a few hours.
That's it. Or a 24-hour out of service. Or maybe a fine.
A couple points on my CSA.
Yeah, got a couple of violations on my CSA.
But I really want to get this done, or, yeah, got the point.
Yeah, exactly. So here's what he says. He says, felony criminal prosecution of drivers and carriers for violations of commercial vehicle safety laws or regulations is rare. Remember we said that earlier. Mm-hmm. This is actually rare to be prosecuted. He says, but not as uncommon as one might think. Typically, they arise after. He says this is when you see the more the felonies coming into getting a truck driver or a company when a fatal commercial wreck happens. He said that usually leads to an investigation by law enforcement or an FMCSA compliance review. He says less frequently, prosecutions come about after a compliance review where widespread log falsification is found and management is facilitating the log falsification.
So it's the company's management facilitating it?
Well, and he's going to go over that here in a second. But if you think about, and he mentions the ELDs. If you look at the way companies and drivers falsify ELDs, it's different today. Okay, we don't have 2 log books. Me, personally, if you want the truth, you know what I used to do. I'd wait till the next morning to fill my log out, and then I would just make it to what it matched where I was at, and I just took a chance and never got pulled around. It was probably stupid of me. I was a young driver. He says, here are some key areas where criminal penalties can come into play. Falsification of logs and other documents. He says, granted, this is much harder now that most long-haul drivers operate with ELD devices. He says, but there are practices such as choosing a false duty status or even disconnecting the ELD that constitutes for log falsification. You hear what he said? Like if you just go ahead and put on duty or off duty when you're really not, and they figure it out, that's falsification of your log. He said also, if you disconnect it, some drivers will disconnect their ELD and then go wink, wink, I had a problem with my log, I had to use my paper log, and then just go ahead and run a paper log for a little bit and falsify that. It's a lot easier to do. He's saying this really you can end up getting a felony from this by falsifying, because this is really federal. When you're a truck driver, you're under federal law. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's making sense. It's making sense to me.
Okay, and this is what he's getting at. He says, drivers often ask me rhetorically, where is the crime in falsifying a logbook? What's the big deal? Yeah. What do you get? Why are you getting so uptight about it there, Mr. DLT officer? Yeah. That's exactly. That's what they sound. That's what a lot of guys think. Like, what's the big deal? Guy, keep your shirt on. But it says the simple answer is that it's a federal felony. It's federal, and that goes for any other document required by the FMCSA. The U.S. Criminal Code Section 18 U.S.C. 1001 says it's a felony when an individual makes or uses any false writing or document knowing the same to contain any materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent statement or entry. This crime is punishable by up to 5 years in prison.
Wow. No, I didn't expect that one.
Exactly. See what he's saying here is, if they want to make an example out of you, like the DOT, the feds can prosecute you if they, especially if a company is getting multiple violations and they see these drivers doing it, they can say, let's make an example out of these guys. And he's saying this has happened before. He said it's rare, but it's not uncommon, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it happens more than we actually believe it does.
Well, I could see him wanting to make them hitting a point where they're going to make an example out of you because of the fact that you're leading to have an issue larger down the road because you're not correcting it now. You know what I mean?
I absolutely. Now, here's what he says. He says, when a driver records personal conveyance. Get it? Now we're getting into that. He says, when a driver records personal conveyance on his log while the vehicle is actually being used in the service of a carrier, it's a felony. A lot of drivers don't realize that. And a lot of companies, believe it or not, especially your 1099 companies, those guys are smaller. They think, we're flying under the radar, blah, blah, blah. Go ahead, driver, use your personal conveyance to get there. And you're not supposed to even I don't think you're even supposed to advance towards the load. You have to go back the other way for your personal conveyance, believe it or not.
Well, they don't want you going closer to it because it's an excuse then to always use your personal conveyance to get closer. But I could have sworn I heard someone telling me that their company used to tell them to do that all the time.
Yeah.
Because they made the driver think that it was up to the company to allow them to use that or something to that effect.
Yeah. I think a lot of drivers don't totally understand the conveyance. And I think some companies that are smaller that maybe don't have like a safety department are probably not realizing. But this is specifically saying when you do this, that is a felony. You can go to prison for this. Believe it or not, even though it's rare, you're still taking a chance.
Right.
He says intentionally falsifying a vehicle inspection report or employment history on a commercial driver employment application is also a felony. So now the vehicle...
We got a lot of felons out there.
Right. So if you're an owner operator or whatever and you falsify a report on your vehicle, okay, an inspection...
See, that's not cool.
That's not cool, especially if you got brakes out of service.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not cool because you're chancing, really you're chancing your life and other people's lives when you falsify certain things.
Well,
like
think
that.
about it, right? Okay, let's say I'm a guy, then I have a truck, right?
You're a guy.
Yeah, and I have a big truck. All right, I have a little truck now, but let's say I got a big truck.
Okay.
And the brakes are not up to par, and I falsify it, or I even get a shop to falsify it.
That's not. I don't like that.
Well, then I go get into an accident,
right?
And then they start doing the paper trail,
right?
And they go, "Hey, you recently said that your brakes were good." And guess what? We're looking at these brakes and they're no good. And you killed somebody. Now you're going to prison.
Yeah, especially if you sat there and used the brakes as your excuse.
Yeah. For a couple dollar job, you went, or maybe to save time, you went and falsified. But more interesting to me was the employment one. Because let me tell you something. I've been in every department in trucking.
Yeah.
And that is the big one.
It is.
Everybody knows that truckers... Honestly, the employment application is 95% bogus. And a lot of these guys, they have their employment history on 10th Street, and a lot of that is bogus. These guys, they'll put down they were at Joe Blow's trucking company and they were never there.
Right. Just to get that gap filled.
Or what they'll do is they'll go, well, yeah, I think I was there about 3.5 years. And if everybody knows, if you're in the recruiting department, everybody knows when a trucker says, I've been there a year, it means you were there 2 months.
Yep.
I'm serious. It's the truth. It's like guys lie about size. The fish was this big, right? I caught this big fish. But the bottom line is, that's a felony.
I mean... I guess that's one of those situations where it's kind of, I can understand to a point,
See,
but what
you're saying it the way they say, like you said,
what's
they
the
were
harm if you
exactly.
But I do understand it if you are trying to pull more experience. So you're saying, hey Troy, verify that I was with you. You got a DOT number. Whatever. I can understand to the point to where you're trying to get that experience, or hey, I know I drove local, but tell them I did over the road because I need this job.
That's all a felony.
And that's what I'm saying. I can understand why they're doing it, but I don't agree on why they're doing it, is what I'm trying to point out, because that experience is very important because of the fact that if you don't have it, you shouldn't be out there solo doing it, because if there's a situation that comes up that you haven't been presented to because you weren't in that over the road experience to do it, then you're chancing yet again other people's lives. And I don't think what drivers are probably like saying, Ruthann, just shut up with the other people's life stuff or whatever it is.
No, I don't think they're saying that.
Well, some might. I get annoying to people. I understand that. But what I'm thinking of is that's what's giving drivers the bad names, because there's too many people out there that don't care enough about what all is, the whole big picture. You know what I mean? There's a lot of drivers out there that do value what they do. They take a lot of, I don't like the word pride, but they take a lot of respect in what they're doing. They dress great. They do all this, like they really value what their job is. Then you have the drivers that don't, and they don't look at it in the same picture. And they're the ones that are giving the drivers that are really being respectful to what they do that bad name.
So you have the drivers that sample the grape in the store.
Hey, I sample grapes, so I'm not saying anything on that.
I'm just saying it's the same exact thing. Like you just said. I mean, and most people don't think about that, because I can tell you the way the regulations are on an employment application. You have to collect 3 years. Mm-hmm. Now listen to this. You have to collect 3 years and make 3 attempts on each employer.
Yep.
That's what it says in the rules. You have to make 3 attempts to contact them and verify the trucker was there.
Right.
But the truck driver, when he comes in, he has to supply actually a 10-year work history.
Right.
That has to be on hand. So a company's obligated to check out 3. They're obligated to make 3 attempts on each employer
for 3 years.
For the past 3 years, mm-hmm. But a truck driver has to supply an entire 10 years. So I can't remember where I was. Well, I know where I was 9 years ago, but in most places, most people, they don't remember where the hell they were. So they just start saying, yeah, I was here for 4 years. I was here for 3 years. And just to fill in that gap. And that they're saying, and like exactly what you're saying, what's the harm? Well, the harm is it's technically a law, and it's a felony.
It's a federal law.
And a lot of people don't realize that someday you can get caught up in a big, what they call a sweep, where they're trying to make an example out of a company, right. And they pull you in and they give you, at the very least, a big ass fine. Okay.
Something that you don't want no matter what it is.
Or they give you, say, a felony. Maybe they give you a felony, but they say, no time, you're not going to do any time, but you get a felony. Well, guess what? Now you got a fresh felony and nobody wants to hire you.
Because it's not going to retroactive back to,
And I know a lot of people, they go, I'll just get the felony expunged. Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you something. In my lifetime in trucking, everybody that's ever said they were getting an expungement, I've never met a trucker ever that got the felony actually expunged. It's almost like...
I thought there was one, and it was something to do with his brother.
I don't know.
It was an identity thing where they actually have the proof that the brother was the one that causing the identity issue.
I don't remember, honestly. If there was an expungement, it's very rare in like
it's extremely
30
rare.
Years of trucking. Trust me,
extremely difficult. And let's put it this way: even if you get it expunged, do you know how much trouble you still have to do? It's explaining yourself every single time.
Right. So bottom line, guys, and Paul even goes on to say, do your best, honestly. Do your best to be accurate and keep record of it. And ladies, we got a lot of wives that listen to the show, Ruth Ann. Keep records for your husband. Mm-hmm. Do your diligent.
Wives know more than the husbands do 90% of the time. They really, I'm not saying every, because we do have. Yeah, but
mostly you're right.
But mostly the wives do, because they have to do. They're the ones doing the paperwork at home.
You've always remembered my stuff. I mean, honestly. Okay. So anyway, so here's what he says: other violations and regs are this. He says, although the criminal code provides criminal penalties, the FMCSRs do not. But that doesn't mean a loophole for truckers or carriers. Most states have provisions in their state criminal or traffic codes that can make it a crime, usually a misdemeanor, to violate the FMCSR. A misdemeanor is punishable by up to 90 days confinement and fine, the amount of which is set by each state. The out-of-service criteria have no bearing on whether a state treats a violation as a misdemeanor or not. Furthermore, for a violation typically treated as a misdemeanor, there is nothing to prevent prosecution of it as a felony under the criminal code. So I guess what they were saying is the criminal code provides penalties for them. And so there's certain things that are just misdemeanor where you're not going to get a lot of trouble. But bottom line is misdemeanor or felony.
It's still on your record.
Right.
It's on your permanent record.
Right. The falsification of an application is a felony, like it says. The disconnecting of a log or an ELD is a felony. If you're a trucking company and you're fixing your driver's logs, that's a felony. So not only can you be shut down, but you could also go to prison. There's many things that we take for granted, and it's very rare. You don't hear about it much, but it doesn't mean they're not going to start ramping up and tightening the grip on people. My advice, just be honest on your paperwork.
Yeah. I mean, a company would rather know that you went to 5 different orientations this past year and didn't stay at any of them. They'd rather you know that than pull it up in your paperwork and DAC shows it that you've been to these 5 different orientations, and they're like, well, what about these companies? Start off on the right foot, because then the company will stick behind you more. If they already know that you lie about too much stuff, if they end up hiring you, then they don't have that trust in you.
I mean, he goes in, and I'm gonna link the article in here. He goes into other things like coercion in hiring a lumper, bumping weights of household goods. He goes into like other things that you could get in trouble for. And his name is Paul O. Taylor. And I'm going to leave his phone number on the podcast because he puts it on this article. The article came from Overdrive. And if you want to read the rest of the article, head on over to Overdrive Online and read that. And Paul's number, if you got any questions for real about anything legal or not, this guy, it says he's been representing truck drivers for over 25 years. So this guy's one of us, okay? Paul's not he's not putting this article out there to upset people. He's actually trying to help you guys make better decisions in your lives. His number is 855-943-3518, and you can find him at truckersjusticecenter.com. Moving on. So, Ruth Ann, how about LoadSmart?
LoadSmart. They have that the Camion break even calculator.
Yes, and if you're an owner-operator or at least purchase driver, it's free. That's all I can tell you. It's free. I know a lot of people are downloading it, Ruth Ann, and what's really cool, it's called the break-even calculator. You download this, you plug in the stuff, it integrates with your ELDs and everything, all your stuff in your computer, in your truck, and it will tell you if you're making money, and it'll tell you that you might be losing money.
Right.
I mean, a lot of drivers think right now, Ruth Ann, because we're in good times and the rates are real high, who cares? We're making money. Well, you might be able to save a very significant amount just by, keeping a strict, tight watch on your business with this calculator. Camion, Camion.io/TalkCDL. That's Camion.io/TalkCDL. I'm going to say it one more time. Camion, Camion.io/TalkCDL. I left out the dot. I had to say it again.
I think you got the dot.
Did I get the dot? All right. Moving on. Okay. So the talk of the last 2 weeks, Ruth Ann, was the trucker, that had the fatal
justice.
Well, he had the fatal crash in Colorado in 2019, killed 4 people. Negligence for sure. Okay. Shouldn't have been there. Probably didn't have the experience where he should have been. And we all thought, well, he just panicked. He obviously did not mean hurt. In fact, that was a smack in all truckers' face. 110-year sentence. Every trucker in the world's going, you know what? That could happen to me. What if I make a mistake? And plus his brakes went out, but the mistake was he didn't take the off ramp. The runoff ramp to where he could have saved himself and people. Well, again, I'll say this. The guy was going down a mountain. The truck probably was getting louder. And the last thing he was doing was looking where he can get off the road. He was trying to he's trying to slow it down. He's pushing down and he's holding on tight. And next thing you know, it's just honestly a nightmare and people get killed. Well, anyways, they gave him the 110-year sentence. This week, it was commuted down to 10 years. And I'll read it here for you in a second. I got this. This one's, I think, from CDL Life.
It was on a couple of different. It was on 48.
It was
48. Yeah.
But I'm crediting CDL Life. But anyway, so it got commuted down to 10 years. And then at the end, it says he is eligible for probation in 2026. So in 2026, which is only 3 years from now, he actually will probably get out of prison, which is good.
Yeah, if anything, he's learned a very tragic lesson, but he's learned it, I'm sure. You could see when you see the photos of him, you can see that he's, he was troubled over the whole situation. I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem like he was too arrogant and not thinking at anything. He looked like he was troubled over the whole thing.
Oh my! Did you see his face?
His
looked
face.
like a little boy crying, and it was sincere. I mean that.
That's
you can
what I
look at
mean.
some people and go, "That's crocodile tears," which means fake. That guy was sincere. He absolutely was like, "I had an accident. I'm sorry." He wasn't drunk. He wasn't impaired. Yes, he didn't do the right thing and take the runoff ramp, and that's really what they got him on. But the bottom line is he panicked. Okay, guys,
and everybody's outcry helped him.
Yeah, and I even said 10 to 15 years max. They brought him down to 10, and now he's, Lord willing, he's going to be out in 3. Okay, it says his name was Rogel Aguilera-Mederos. And then there's a little thing here. It says, Mr. Mederos will be forever grateful for the millions of people that supported him. You know, over 5 million people signed that petition.
That's amazing.
It is amazing because it was an outrage, like you said. And you know what I really thought was amazing? Their resentencing hearing was supposed to be on the 13th of January. They got that much pressure from the trucking industry and other people in the industry that the judge went and he sent the guy a letter and said, let me see here if I have
I don't think it was the judge. I think it was the governor.
Or the governor, rather. I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize. You're right. Governor Jared Polis announced the commutation or the commuting of Rogel Aguilera-Mederos sentencing Thursday. I am writing to inform you that I am granting your application for a commutation or commutation, however you pronounce that, Polis wrote. After learning about the highly atypical and unjust sentence in your case, I am commuting your sentence to 10 years, granting you parole eligibility on December 30th of 2026. And I'm going to tell you something. The prosecutors, they're also, remember they were celebrating and they had like a break shoe trophy and they were high-fiving over the conviction.
Nasty.
Well, they went and sent a letter also to the governor saying, hey, you know, that's 110 is a little much. Let's drop it to 30 to 35 years. And I'm thinking, that's still too much. 30 to 30. Oh, gee, how generous of you. The poor guy will be an old man over an accident. Okay. I could see if he was DUI.
The DUIs are the ones that get off cheap. He's the one that did it.
Yeah. I mean, there's people that get DUIs. We read a couple of them last week, but I remember one in Tampa that was drunk. He wrecked, and his passenger, which was his best friend, got killed. He got 15 years. And he was DUI. I mean, come on, man.
It was not just DUI. He was like driving ridiculous. Like it was a lot.
Well, whatever.
He was racing and stuff. Like there was a lot more to it.
Yeah,
it wasn't just that he was drunk driving down the road. He was like
drunk and racing. You're right.
Yeah.
And he got 15 years. It's crazy. So, anyways, this at least the governor, give him credit. Okay. All right. That he 100% did what? Seen the injustice, like he said. This is crazy. My gosh, that's insane. I say praise the Lord for that.
Exactly. But he not only seen the injustice that the driver got, but he might have already seen because there was already companies and drivers saying, we're not going to go into the state. We're avoiding them. We're not even going to go in there. He might have realized, hey, we're about to have some other serious issues. Not only do we have a lot of problems with COVID coming through to us right now, but we're about to have a few more other issues because we're going to get boycotted because of our outdated law. So he's pretty smart in that whole situation there too.
Yeah, bottom line, it turned out good for this truck driver. But you know what? He probably aged 110 years when he was told, you're staying in prison for the rest of your life. I mean, just imagine the anxiety that kid was going through. Again, listen, I'm not taking anything away from the victims that were their families lost people.
No, it's still horrible that it all happened.
There's still a punishment, seriously, in that case that should be when you have negligence that it's no different than that cop, Kim Potter. She's going to prison because either way they said she still had negligence. And I'm not going to get into that because I think that was unjust also, but I'm not going to get into that case of the officer. But the bottom line is negligence is negligence.
Right.
You can't just go, whoops, I killed somebody. And, you know, people get in car accidents all the time and nobody goes to jail. All right. It's literally the word accident.
Right.
So,
There's a reason for it.
Moving on.
You know, Carter Lumber is a great company to work for.
Yeah, we just did an interview with them.
Yes.
Carter Lumber. I'm going to give their address real quick. www.carterlumber.com/talkcdl. It's like this little tiny short form you fill out, and they contact you and hire you. If you have a Class A or a Class B license and you want to be home every day, local plus benefits, contact Carter Lumber, carterlumber.com/talkcdl. Ruth Ann, moving on.
Moving on. Lay it on me. What else you got there, Bubba?
Bubba? Okay.
Bubba?
So let me see where we're at on time here. Okay, we're good. So here's one here. It says, trucker stays with stuck rig for 2 days awaiting a tow.
That just... Tell me the rest of the story.
Well, I know at first you're going, man, he's a dedicated guy. It says a truck driver chose to stay with his rig for 2 whole days while he awaited for a tow after getting stuck in a ditch in North Dakota. And of course, this time of the year, North Dakota, being in a ditch, that's chilly. I believe he had a bunk heater or an APU going because there's no way you're going to survive in a truck. You know, inside a vehicle actually gets colder than being outside. Did you know that? When it's the truth. It's proven. When you're inside a metal can like that, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't have heat on the inside, and by the way, they say a candle actually will provide heat in a little closed area like that. Mm-hmm. Truthfully, it'll bring the temperature up. But the bottom line is, if you don't have a heater going and you stay in that vehicle, you're actually going to be colder than the temperatures are recorded colder on the inside. It says the truck driver lost control and went into a ditch on the morning of Sunday, December 26th, and was not towed out till the afternoon of the 28th. So that was like 2.5 days. According to the News Dakota, the truck driver and his rig were stuck on North Dakota Highway 32 near mile marker 65 in Fingal, Fingal. Multiple Barnes County officers say they made contact with the trucker on Sunday, who has not been named, but that driver chose to stay in the cab until the tow truck came. The truck driver then contacted the Barnes County Dispatch on Monday to say he needed fuel. So he obviously had heat because he ran out of fuel. Mm-hmm. And a small tow truck was sent to his location to fuel him up. During that encounter, the tow truck driver offered to help the trucker find a place to stay. But again, the driver chose to remain in his tractor. Now listen, the truck driver then contacted Barnes County Dispatch again on Tuesday morning to check in, but once again chose to stay with his truck. A large tow truck finally was able to arrive later that day and get the rig out of the ditch. Officers say that communicating with the trucker was difficult due to a language barrier. But he says, but that police had been in contact with the trucker's dispatcher, who assured the police that they had been in contact with the trucker and that he was doing fine. So again, I'm going to say this, okay? I'm pretty sure that in the DOT handbook, when you get a CDL, it says you must be able to read and write English language. All right, you must be able to read it and you must be able to speak it. Mm-hmm. I'm not putting people down that can't speak it. I'm just saying I don't know where all this is going. Okay, you know, my Spanish brothers out there, or my brothers from the Middle East, or my brothers from Asia. Okay, in all honesty, all right, we're supposed to understand the language, because how are we going to read the road signs? Okay,
yeah, it could have been something.
How are we reading like all the some road signs in certain areas aren't as common as others? Yes, I know you can understand what the word stop means. It's a pretty obvious sign. But if you're stuck, what if the guy would have honestly not had a phone?
Yeah.
Or what if the guy wouldn't have had a heater and he just didn't understand them telling him, "Hey, you should go to a hotel. Let us take you to a hotel." The guy could have died.
Yeah, he could have.
Right. So all I'm saying is that's a little crazy. Again, I'm not putting anybody down. I don't need people writing in and calling me a racist, because I'm far from it. But I'm just addressing the white elephant. You know, if you're in the United States, we need to be able to speak English language because of communication. That's a perfect example why you need to speak English.
Emergency situations.
Absolutely. All right, you guys. There's a lot of apps now that teach you different languages. I've been wanting to learn French myself. Oui, oui. Moving on. You got sponsor for us today?
I do.
What's their name?
National Carrier.
National Carriers, awesome company. Got 1 to 3 year old T680s, looking for lease purchase drivers. They'll even take some student company drivers. They got regional runs, and you can contact them at 888-311-7076. Drivers, pick up the phone, call NCI or National Carriers at 888-311-7076. Tell them that Talk CDL sent you. Moving on, Ruth Ann.
Moving on.
Okay. Okay. We mentioned this earlier in the intro. Trailer did not have lights on prior to fatal crash with family car. Witnesses say this is a very horrible story.
Sounds it.
This is a very, very horrible story. This was in CDL Life. You can read the whole story. I'll read part of it. It says 2 were killed in a crash with a semi-truck south of Utah-Arizona border on Wednesday night. The accident happened on December 29th in Mojave County on southbound Interstate 15 just before 10 p.m. According to St. George, Utah News, the four-wheeler crashed into the back of a semi-truck, wedging the car partially beneath the picture's horrible, beneath the trailer and trapping 3 occupants, a father and his 2 children, inside the vehicle. It said the father, bottom line, let me tell you this. Bottom line was this. The father was killed instantly. The child, the 12-year-old boy, they were both alive, but when they, and this is the sad part, when they took the pressure off them, when they got the car apart, he stopped breathing.
Yeah, he exploded inside.
And I don't know if that was the case, but the bottom line, he stopped breathing. They tried to rush him to the hospital. He died. So now you got this poor 11-year-old girl. Can you imagine the trauma that girl's going through? But really, the bottom line with this. It said there was a couple other witnesses swerved to miss the trucker. He pulled out, and it said by the time he realized the lights weren't working or weren't on, okay, it was too late. All right, because he was obviously pulled out very slow. He was probably fully loaded, and you're not going to pull a semi-truck out real fast. It doesn't happen that way. If especially if you're on an interstate and everybody else is, if it's 70 mile an hour, what's everybody doing? Probably 80. So bottom line is, somebody's in trouble.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Ruth Ann, how many times have we been going down the highway and I said to you, look at that guy. You can't even see him till you get up on him.
Right.
And a lot of times it's again, if you're out there and you got a little utility trailer you pull, okay, that's the most common thing to not have lights.
It's some of them, I notice when you get up there, the lights are really dim because there's like mud and stuff caked around it, or there's something flapping right by it. So you can't see it because it's like flickering because something's flapping around it. You know, that's just honestly for you to see out the front of your car, you make sure your headlights are clean. Make sure your back are too.
Well, here's the other thing, like they'll get that utility trailer, they'll load it up to where you can't see the brake lights on the car in front that's pulling it, or the pickup truck.
Right.
And it's literally pitch black. I actually pulled up to a red light the other day, and there was a vehicle with no lights on, right? And this was in town, at a red light, and you barely could see him because it was at night. He like blended in with the road. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, there's actually somebody right in front of me. And if I wouldn't have been paying attention, I would have pegged this guy. So guys and gals, if your truck isn't working, you know how important a pre-trip is? I'm serious.
No, it is. And I know some of them will probably say, well, the reason I went out at night is because I knew my lights weren't working. Well, hey, I'd rather you go during the day when people can actually see your vehicle than at night when you can't see your vehicle, when you're just worried about a cop seeing you. They're going to see you more faster with your lights not working than at night than during the day.
I wonder why he was pulled over on the side of the road. Was he pulled over because he knew the back lights weren't working? He was trying to mess with them, and he took a chance. All I'm doing is just suggesting. I'm not saying that I know. I'm just saying for whatever reason, guys and gals. And I know that a light. Remember Trooper? What was his name from Indiana? The Sensei. What was his name? Do you remember his name?
No,
I can't remember. He's the DOT officer we've had on numerous times. But it's been about 2 years since he was on. Trooper Hoover.
Yeah. I just know Sensei.
But what Trooper Hoover told me, he said, remember he said, listen, guys, I have actually was driving down the interstate several times behind a tractor trailer, and all of a sudden a light goes out. And he said, obviously I'm witness to it. So, because you get a trucker that says that must have gone out because I pre-tripped it and it was working before. Yeah, right. A likely story. He said, but I've actually witnessed it.
Mm-hmm.
So this, you can get a short in your lights. At one time, lights were a major problem in trucking.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather and I were always repairing lights and trying to keep them going on his tractor trailer. Today, lights are a lot more, stable and sturdy and tougher, especially with LED systems.
Mm-hmm.
But still, that pre-trip is so important that your blinkers are working, your four-ways are working, and your brake lights are working, and your lights are working. You can't...
Everything.
This is a perfect example, guys. You know how much trouble there's going to come from this because they're already saying, witnesses say the lights weren't working. That's already, you know what that says? Somebody's in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
When they start saying that means you're in trouble, trucker or trucking company or last company that, where you picked up the trailer. Maybe you just did a drop and hook in a yard. And you know how many truckers complain on this show where a tire or a light's out when I pick up the trailer? I'm so sick and tired of picking up in the drop yard and the lights aren't working.
Yeah, no, it's true. It happens, but, you have the choice. When you go to pick it up, you need to make record of it and you need to try and get it fixed as soon as possible. You don't want to go and go down the road and have something like this happen to you.
Last but not least, let's move on. I got one last story. Carjacker forces trucker to drive after fatally shooting officer goes on crime spree. So here's what this guy does. I'll read it, a little bit of it. It says a man has been arrested after killing a police officer, holding a trucker against their will, and going on a crime spree in Illinois on Wednesday. The incident happened on December 29th in Wayne County, Illinois. According to the press release regarding the incident, primarily reports indicate that Deputy Sean Riley of Wayne County Sheriff's Office was dispatched to a motorist to assist on Interstate 64. A short time later, another officer responding to the reports of the officer involved shooting located Deputy Riley deceased on scene with his squad car nowhere to be found. So it sounds like the guy killed the cop and then took his car. Mm-hmm. So then he ends up pulling up in it says the driver went and he found a trucker. And it doesn't say how he did it, but obviously either jumped up there with a gun or jumped in his truck and then forced him to go to a gas station. And then he robbed the gas station. Then he took somebody else hostage and took them to their house, had them tied up at the guy's house, and then SWAT busted in, saved the day. This guy's still alive. They didn't kill him, which is rare.
I was going to say he's lucky.
They didn't kill the guy. He's going for murder one,
murder of an officer.
But, and that's a sad story. But, the bottom line on this show, what we're concerned about here more than anything is the trucker. And I think the trucker was in his 60s. I'm just going to keep this short. This is why I advocate for truckers to carry. I'm serious. Somebody jumps in your truck, and at the least I would have is a good 6-inch blade strapped or Velcroed to my gear shifter. I'm sorry, there's not many gear shifters anymore, but on the side of my seat to where I can reach and I'm going to put it in you. You jump in my truck, you're getting a knife in you, or guess what? You're getting shot. I'm sorry. That there was a truck driver in West Virginia a couple months ago that defended himself when a guy tried to come in his truck. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when you open that door to threaten a trucker, it's like you trying to kick my door in at my house. That's the man's house. Mm-hmm. He's out. In fact, the trucker's in his truck 90% of the time over his own house. Right. They usually go home every couple of weeks. They're home for like 2-3 days, and then they're out on the road for weeks at a time. That's his house.
Not only that, but some of the freight that these drivers are carrying, mm-hmm. it is federal. It's not your standard freight. It's federal freight. They don't like cigarettes or certain products that they don't make known what they are because of
Absolutely,
the quality of the expense of it. So they're not going to post what it is, but they're usually being followed at one point. But point is
cigarette loads, for example.
Point is that you don't want to these drivers know they have to protect their load too, and themselves. So they're going to be on the ball, and if someone's going to come after them in their truck, they're going to be on the ball of protecting everything in that truck.
Well, I would say they're not obligated to protect the truck. You know what I'm saying?
No, I know what you're saying there, but
They're obligated to protect their life, though, for sure. And you get a guy that comes in your truck. And I'll tell you something else. Again, I don't know how he overcame the guy. Maybe he was fueling up and he put a gun in his back, said, get in the truck, we're going somewhere. I don't know. I would tell you this. Anybody that points a gun at you, you're better off fighting because you might not come back alive. You already killed the cop. I'm just,
you know what I'm more stunned at?
What's that?
You know, a while ago we did a report about how a guy was doing a burglary and he jumped in a semi to take off. It's like, how fast? If you want to be like kind of not known that you're doing something wrong, but yet pick the biggest object that you can get into, they're going to see you.
Yeah, you're not being too discreet by
getting a big semi truck
as a getaway car.
Yeah, I'm stuck on that part. You know what's
well, that's their reason why they're criminals. They're not too bright. But look, the bottom line with it is, you know, I'm just a little advice to truckers, man. I'm not telling you to kill anybody. I'm telling you, if you can carry. That's my advice. That's 100% my advice. It's legal to carry, and they're actually working on a trucker federal carry card right now. They are.
That's great.
To where they can carry in all states, no matter what, because they're federal. Right now, 38 states recognize most of your carry permits, and you should do is go to what Ruth Ann always. You use Legal Heat, right?
Legal Heat.
Go to legalheat.com and check them out. That'll give you the list of states that it carries. A couple other things, Ruth Ann. You know what? When you're pulling out, guess what? You're not going that fast. You can open your door and dive out.
Mm-hmm.
Odds are the dumb criminal don't know how to drive a tractor trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the bottom line is, okay, anybody ever jumps in your truck or tells you you're going for a ride, fight. You're better off being shot right there. And most likely they're not going to start shooting in front of people. Okay. So I'm just saying, protect yourself, guys. It's a dangerous world out there. And truckers are really, even though we're a team, we're all alone out there. You got to do what you got to do and keep your doors locked. Ruth Ann, I think that's it for me. Do you have your fun fact? Or what do you got? What do you got?
Well, I was going to ask you first, what do you call an 80-year-old cheerleader?
You got a serious look on your face, and then you're going to be cracking up laughing here in a second. All right, an 80-year-old cheerleader. Lucky. No, what do you call her?
Old Yeller.
Old Yeller. All right. Old Yeller. That's sick. Right then.
I know.
You're twisted. All right. What do you got?
All right.
Fun fact?
Well, no, I'm going to do the word of the day first.
Word of the day.
Corybantic.
Corybanta?
Tick.
Corybantic. C-O-R-B.
C-O-R-Y-B-A-N-T-I-C.
What is Corybantic?
Corybantic.
Corybantic.
Wild, frenzied.
Really?
Yeah. The audience at the rally became louder and corybantic.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wild and frenzied.
Mm-hmm.
Corybantic.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, you guys can find a word for a situation to use that word.
Guaranteed.
You're in trucking. It's very frenzied and what was the other word? Wild?
Yeah, wild and frenzied.
Wow. You have something else for us, Ruth Ann?
I do. The fun fact.
A fun fact.
Okay, so this says...
What does it say?
That there's only one place in the U.S. where 4 states actually meet.
There's one place. I bet you I can figure it out. Okay. There's one place where 4 states meet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not kidding you. I know this one. I literally know this one.
I think a lot of drivers are probably saying that right now.
Yeah.
But think about it. All 4 parts of that state meet, not 3. Because there's tons of 3.
What do you mean all 4 parts of that state? Or all 4 states meet
right. There's
together.
Right.
Right. And that is, now wait a second here. That is it, no, it can't be. I was going to say Ohio, Indiana. That's not, no, it's more out west, isn't it? It's not Nebraska. Wyoming. Just stabbing.
There goes
right,
that.
Honestly, I'm trying to picture it right now. Oh, wait a second. Is it New Mexico? Is that one of them?
One of them.
New Mexico, Texas? No?
Mm-mm.
So it's New Mexico,
mm-hmm.
Colorado,
mm-hmm.
Utah, and Arizona.
Yes, very
Wow.
good. It says that it's called
Wow.
the Four Corners Monument, right? It's the only part where it's where all four of those states meet, and it's the only place in America where so many states converge, which is especially impressive given that there are 65 spots where 3 states meet.
That's pretty cool.
Right.
Wow.
It's also ran by the Navajo Nation, is the person that maintains this, the group that maintains the site.
Right.
And meet those of the UT Mountain tribe.
You know what's funny? That actually was for trucking, that fun fact, because trucker, let me tell you something. If anybody knows geography, it's a trucker. Okay, it's the truth. I just had to have a couple hints. All right, Ruth Ann, we're out of here.
Peace.
Peace. Praise the Lord.